Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy. I hope you're all doing really well wherever or whenever in the world that you are. I'm excited. Today I'm doing another tag video, and no, I was not tagged to do this, but I saw it and I thought it was fun. So I figured, why not? I mean, this is my channel. I can do whatever it is that I want to do. I recently saw, I think it might have been last week, Hannah from Hannah's Recent Reads post a video doing a this or that romance edition tag. I think one of her friends started the tag, and so I'll make sure I leave both of their videos and their information down below if you want to go check their channels out. Now I'm excited to do this tag in particular because, as you all might know or might not yet know, I am an avid romance reader. And so I think it will be helpful for me to kind of share some of my romance preferences. And that way for you all, you can figure out, are we bookish twins? Like, are we bookish sisters? Do we have the same tastes? Or are our faves and flops never gonna match? Because I'm new here in the booktube community, figure I'd put this out into the world and hopefully I will attract more romance-loving fellow humans. Also, I wanna know your answers to these questions. Which things do you prefer? And, you know, I'm a sucker for a good recommendation. So if any of my preferences you feel like matches a romance book that you read recently or you heard about that you think I might enjoy, leave those comments down below. So let's jump into the tag. The first question is a cliffhanger or a happily ever after. I would say I'm absolutely team happily ever after. Every once in a while in a romance that I know is a series, or like I know there's multiple books following the same couple and it's all already published, I don't mind a cliffhanger here or there because then I'm just excited to jump into the next book. But generally speaking, because I read mostly as a form of escapism and I want that sense of predictability and relief that I know is guaranteed in a happily ever after, in romance, I tend to really prefer a happily ever after. And sometimes cliffhangers drive me crazy. So I would say happily ever after. Question 2 is a hardcover or a paperback or a softback. And here's the thing, I like the look of a hardcover better. However, if on the rare occasion I am physically reading a book, I much prefer a paperback. I like that you can kind of fold the book on itself. I don't mind if the spine breaks. I just find it a much more comfortable read. Yeah, and I love that floppy paperback experience, whether it's a skinny book, a medium book, or a chunky book. Number 3 is angsty or cute. For this, I think I need a little bit of both. If I read too many angsty romances in a row, it makes me anxious and tense. I need a balance. I need a little break in between the two because I love like a cute small town, especially romance, or like a cute, I don't know, fantasy romance. I sometimes really need an easy breezy story, but I need them balanced with something a little more dramatic and angsty. Number 4 is emotional or a rom-com. And again, I feel like I want both. I feel like every once in a while, I like a really emotionally impactful romance read, but I actually feel like, as I'm saying this answer out loud, I actually feel like I prefer a rom-com. First of all, I miss the movie rom-coms that we used to get back in the day. So whenever Netflix or whoever wants to do a rom-com renaissance, I'm here for that. But I feel like in books, I like a rom-com. I like when there's quirky banter and, you know, funny side characters and it's a little lighter. I find those easier to read and much more my tea these days. Like I said, once in a while, I do like a romance that packs more of like an emotional punch. But I kind of want those sparingly because, like I said, I read for relaxation, for escapism, to like ease my troubles and my worries, not necessarily to like bring more into my day-to-day. Number 5 is booktok versus bookstagram. And I'm definitely team booktok. I find booktoks so addicting. I feel like I can scroll on those for hours and my list of my TBR just like grows and grows and grows and grows. I have so much fun on booktok. I actually don't think my algorithm or whatever on Instagram is set up for bookstagram. I get no bookish content on my Instagram. I would love some recommendations on some bookstagram accounts because yeah, my Instagram is sadly missing all the bookish things that I know and love. Number 6 is people or objects on the cover. Honestly, I'm pretty indifferent about this. I think if I had to pick one, which I guess is the point of this game, I would probably say I prefer objects on the cover. I like that it's a little more incognito and it's not so obvious to like every person around me that I'm reading romance. And I have mixed feelings about the cartoonish people drawings. There's some covers where I really, really like it on. For example, all of the Emily Henry books, like I love those covers. But then other times, for some reason, it doesn't totally work for me. Like I don't know that it necessarily matches the atmosphere or like the story I'm reading sometimes. So I think I prefer objects because it's a little more subtle about the genre. And I feel like there's more freedom in objects. Like it can be anything relevant to the theme or to the characters. And I kind of like that it has a little more freedom. While the people, it's just like, these are the people in the romance. And so number 7 is a new release or a backlisted book. I would say I probably prefer new releases, especially in romance. I feel like some authors' backlisted stuff feels dated and like feels very, like it hasn't aged very well. You know, I think sometimes when I go back and rewatch shows like How I Met Your Mother and like a few other shows, and I'm like, ooh, these jokes are not cute today. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like backlisted romance books give me the same vibe where there's, you know, like a damsel type character or like questionable consent on page. And those things I feel like were really popular in like the 90s and earlier. And so I think I tend to prefer newer releases just because they're a little more conscious of like social issues and consent and like those kinds of things. Number 8 is a TBR or a free-for-all. I absolutely am a mood reader. And so the obvious answer is a free-for-all. I love just kind of sporadically picking up books or audiobooks that just suit my fancy in the moment. And I think it's funny because you can tell my reading moods because I'll go, you know, 5 or 6 books with the same theme or trope or genre, and then you can see my mood shift, and then I'm reading something totally different and I kind of binge something different. Then you'll see me jump back and forth. So yeah, it's a free-for-all over here. You never know what I'm gonna pick up next. And as my sisters can attest, I am the queen of picking up too many books at the same time because I am a little indecisive, and so I think it's a free-for-all for better or for worse. Number 9 is Open Door or Fade to Black. And obviously I like an open door steamy scene. Like that's what I'm here for. If I'm reading romance, I want all of the feels. Everything from like the cutesy feels to the angsty feels, because I want the spicy feels too. Oh, that was so cringy, I hated that. But yeah, I would prefer like an open door sex scene or steamy scene. The Fade to Black, there's a time and a place, especially in like YA, or maybe if the romance isn't the center, like main plot, I'm okay with the Fade to Black. But generally speaking, come on now, why are we reading romances, you know? 10 is audiobooks versus physical books. I love an audiobook, and I will die on this mountain. I will die on this hill. I am team audiobooks forever and for always. I love audiobooks for so many reasons. I have already videos about my favorite audiobooks and my favorite audiobook narrators, because I think audiobooks, I think they're having a little moment. Like I feel like more people are listening to them and enjoying them. Because I feel like in the past people would be like, that's not really reading. And I would just, you know. So yeah, I love an audiobook. As I've mentioned before, I love that it makes reading a little more accessible for me. I like that sometimes I can rest my eyes and still consume a story. 11 is Kindle or nah. And I like my Kindle. My Kindle is just fine, my Kindle, we like her. She's a nice wine Bordeaux color cover, and I feel when I'm reading my Kindle, it's really cozy. I feel like I read ebooks or like books on my Kindle faster than I do physical copies or like physical books. So I like them for that reason. And I love that when I'm traveling, I can bring more books using my Kindle than I could physical books. I like, you know, the fancier ones where it's like the lighting settings are better for reading at night and during the day. And yeah, I like my Kindle. 12 is buddy read or fly solo. Buddy reading is one of my favorite things to do with people. I feel like the amount of times that I ask my sister or some of my friends like, hey, do you want to buddy read X, Y, and Z? I think it just makes the reading experience even more fun because then you can text or call each other, you know, what part are you at? What did you think of this? Or have you gotten to this scene? And I just think that makes it so much more engaging and exciting to read stories. I mean, right, that's why book clubs are a thing, is it's fun to read books together with people and to share your overall thoughts and, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, it's so fun to talk to people about books. I go through phases where my pacing is like not sustainable for buddy reads. For example, like if I'm reading something with a friend, they're reading the physical copy and I'm listening to the audiobook. It's not unheard of that I finish the audiobook in like 2 sittings while they're still on like chapter 6. And so I have to be really mindful when I'm buddy reading to make sure we're like pacing it together. Because again, that's much more enjoyable, I think, than reading it totally by myself. 13 is small town or dark romance. I got both. I want both of them. And if I can get a small town dark romance, does that exist out there in the world? If it does, let me know in the comments down below because I would love to read that. I feel like just like one of the earlier questions, like emotional or rom-com, I want both because if I read too much of one thing, I get a little bored of it. So I like having some balance of like reading something kind of dark and then have it offset by something like cutesy and folksy and small town and quaint. I feel like anytime I see that kind of buzzword of like, it's a dark romance or it's a small town romance, I'm probably gonna like purchase it right away. Purchased. 14 is alpha or sweetheart hero. I think if I was asked this like 5 or 6 years ago, I probably would have said alpha, but I'm finding that as I'm getting older, I actually prefer more of a cinnamon roll character. And my favorite are the prickly heroes that are really cinnamon rolls on the inside. That's like the sweet spot right there, if you ask me. Like someone who's a little grumpy, a little prickly, maybe a little quiet and mysterious, but underneath that, like the biggest sweetheart, somebody who's like so kind and patient and charming. And yeah, so I think these days I'm probably more cinnamon roll sweetheart hero than alpha. Number 15 is multiple books or one at a time. And as I mentioned earlier in the free-for-all question, I am a chaotic reader. I am well known in my friends group for picking up like 6 or 7 books at the same time and kind of reading one for a couple chapters and then jumping to another. I don't know if it's like, if I'm just waiting for one book to capture me and it hasn't yet, but I want to keep reading. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to try something else at the same time. The trouble with that is I often confuse plots, like especially if I'm reading several of the same genres. Like if I'm reading like 3 fantasies at the same time, I'm like, wait a minute, this magic system, I thought that was in this book. And then, oh wait, that character went on this quest. And I get myself a little bit confused. And it's like, you might be asking, Andy, why would you do that then? And to that I would say, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is. And it's a habit that I can't break, nor do I care to. I like living in a little chaos, you know? A little messiness, a little indecision. I can't help it. Number 16 is a baddie or a damsel in distress. I am always gonna wanna read a baddie. Like, I love a really strong, badass female protagonist who can like kick butt and take names, and like somebody who's really self-sufficient and has lots of skills. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm sort of drawn in historical romances. I kind of prefer a spinster character because they tend to be the more intelligent, more clever. They have hobbies and interests and skills and all this stuff, while damsels in distress, I just find them so boring and so one-dimensional. So that is not my cup of tea in a romance ever. The last one is slow burn or insta-love. To be honest, I have trouble with both of these. Sometimes an insta-love romance works for me for whatever reason, because the rest of the book, there's tension built other places, or there's conflict and drama from an unexpected angle, and like still puts the couple through trials and tribulations. So there are times where I find insta-love books work for me. There's also times where it feels ridiculous and unbelievable and kind of silly, especially with like YA or new adult books. The insta-love trope in those especially drives me nuts. And counter to that, slow burn sometimes works for me. Like sometimes I love that like building of tension and chemistry, and I could like live in that for forever. But sometimes it goes on too long, or it goes on through multiple books, and I don't know. So I feel like I need a happy medium maybe. There's other tropes or like kinds of connection that I prefer. You know, like I love a fake dating trope. Choosing one, I would rather have a slow burn than insta-love. I feel like insta-love irritates me more than slow burns do. But man, when you have the slow burn and then the ending or like the connection isn't satisfying, oof, then I'm like mad about it. Insta-love, I like roll my eyes at, but when a slow burn doesn't pay off, I'm like salty about it for like many, many days afterwards. So yeah, that was the tag. That was fun. I wonder if is there like a fantasy version of that, or a literary fiction this or that? Yeah, if there is, I'm gonna go find it. And if not, maybe I'm gonna make one up, because this is fun. It's fun to talk about the things that you like more than the other things. That wasn't very elegant, but whatever. This is a good time. Like I said at the beginning, I would love to know your answers to any of these questions. Did we have any samesies? Do any of my preferences drive you crazy? Do you have any book recommendations based on some of my preferences? I'd love to know. Leave those comments down below. If you made it to the end, go ahead and leave a little heart emoji, because we're talking about love. That's really literal, and I'm okay with it. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you had fun. I had fun. Frances had fun. You can't see her, but she's right at my feet trying to say, hey. I'm gonna show her a little cameo in a second. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Hello, Miss Frances. How's the weather down there? Yes. Oh, okay, look around. You talk to the people. Oh, okay. Yeah, you find that little sunshine spot.